Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Good morning. I'm Susan Marinoff-Zausner, the president here at the Intrepid Sea, Air, and Space Museum. On behalf of our Board of Trustees and all of us here at the Intrepid, it is an absolute honor to welcome you to our annual Memorial Day ceremony. We extend a special, very special welcome, particularly to those military personnel and veterans who are here with us today. We salute you for your commitment to the security of our nation, and we salute you for protecting the freedom we enjoy in this country every day. Navy Band Northeast, we thank you so much for the pre-ceremony music. I am honored to introduce our special guests on stage with me. I do ask if you can hold your applause until they are all introduced. Vice President of the Intrepid Former Crew Members Association, Mr. Joe Lichauer. Command Chaplain of the USS Arlington, Lieutenant Saul Burleson. Vice Chairman of the Intrepid Museum, Mr. Mel Immergut. Co-Chairman of the Intrepid Museum, Mr. Bruce Mosler. Commander of the U.S. Fleet Forces Command, Admiral Christopher Grady. And the 109th Mayor of the City of New York, the Honorable Bill Deblasio. We are also honored to welcome some very special guests who are here with us today. Please hold your applause, if you will, again until the end. United States Secretary of Transportation, Secretary Elaine Chao. Congresswoman Carolyn Maloney will be joining us shortly. World War II veteran and Doolittle Raider, Lieutenant Colonel Richard Cole. Rear Admiral Stephen Poulin, United States Coast Guard Commander, 1st District, Boston. Rear Admiral Jack Scorby, Commander, Navy Region, Mid-Atlantic. Rear Admiral John Meyer, Commander, Carrier Strike Group 10. Commissioner of the New York City Department of Veterans Services, Brigadier General, retired, Lori Sutton. Thank you for being here. I would also like to welcome our guests from the German Armed Forces Command and Staff College. We are thrilled that you're here with us today. Ladies and gentlemen, please rise as our national colors are advanced, and please remain standing for the performance of our national anthem by the Navy Band Northeast and for the invocation by Chaplain Saul Burleson. Present the colors.
Let us pray. O Lord our God, we remember before you this day the men and women of our armed forces who gave their lives that freedom and justice could live. We recall their sacrifices and offer them anew upon the altar of liberty. Grant, gracious Father, that their deaths not be in vain, and that liberty and peace continue in America through our efforts. Give us an abiding sense of the heritage that our veterans have bestowed, a heritage that is found on the hallowed grounds of the USS Intrepid, where sailors gave their last full measure of devotion in the battles of Leyte Gulf and Okinawa through Vietnam. Look mercifully upon us, we ask, in honor of their sacrifices, and also upon the unrest of the world. Draw all people to yourself and to one another in the bonds of peace. Grant understanding to the nations that they may be united in a compassionate community where there is justice and mercy, truth and freedom. Finally, we commend to your gracious care in keeping all women and men in armed forces at home and abroad. Endow us with the strength and resolve to continue down the path of selfless service modeled by those who have come before. Defend us day by day with your heavenly grace. Give us courage to face the perils which beset us, and grant us a sense of your abiding presence wherever we may be. To the Father of all liberties we pray. Amen.
Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. Please be seated. On Memorial Day, we honor all who have made the ultimate sacrifice protecting our nation and our freedom. We're so pleased that of all the places you could have chosen to have been today, you chose to honor and remember right here next to this legendary aircraft carrier we all call Intrepid. Throughout Intrepid's history, more than 270 of its sailors gave their lives aboard this ship and in the skies above her. Many of the brave men who served with them are here with us today. May I ask all of our Intrepid former crew members, please stand up, please be recognized. Unlike other cultural institutions, the actual physical plant that's our museum, the steel and the rivets that hold this great ship together, they bear a direct connection to the real lives of the men who served on board. Real people molded by valor and sacrifice on the very decks that we are amongst today. We understand it is our responsibility to honor Intrepid's gloried past, and it's also the responsibility of all of us to remember all the servicemen and women who paid the ultimate price for us. At Intrepid, we use personal experiences and this massive beauty of technology to educate and inspire our future generations, to launch those generations towards greater achievements in science and engineering and in aviation, the fields that have become integral to Intrepid's history and critical to our nation. We inspire leaders who will chart new courses both for this museum and for our nation through unknown waters that we can't even yet imagine. For Intrepid, this is an extraordinary year of commending those who serve our nation. This year, we celebrate the 75th anniversary of the Intrepid's commissioning. In her time as a museum, the Intrepid has become a landmark institution here in New York City, offering inclusive learning opportunities to every population. Intrepid has taken a journey from military marvel to Metropolitan Museum. And it is our privilege and our responsibility to protect, preserve, and present the living history of the ship and those who served on her. Coincidentally, it is also the 60th anniversary of the commissioning of our submarine Growler. Earlier this month, in celebration, we opened our new exhibit, A View from the Deep, the Submarine Growler and the Cold War. Since its opening to the public here in 1989, this American-guided missile submarine brings us a remarkable glimpse of history and the stories of the men who served aboard her. Within this exhibit, we tell stories through interactive experiences and engaging content. It allows us to explore the history and the design of the USS Growler with historical artifacts, oral histories of those who served, and behind-the-scenes look at life on board. To us, community plays a big role, and it is incredibly important that we encourage today's younger generation to continue the exploration of history and innovation. Overall, as an institution, we offer K through 12 curriculum-based programming in science, technology, engineering, arts, and math, focusing efforts on underserved populations. We provide sensory-sensitive programming for those families with autism, cognitive disabilities, for those who are deaf and hard of hearing, blind and visually impaired, and for those who have dementia in their families. And we conduct teacher professional development workshops that serve our K through 12 teachers and paraprofessionals yearly, including offering 6 credit-based curricula. We are proud to offer some very special programs to veterans and military personnel, those who have returned with combat-related trauma and other stressors. Our military family programs provide a safe space, a supportive museum experience for returning service members from Iraq and Afghanistan and all veterans from past conflicts, with the aim of building a community of recently reunited families and easing the transition back home. Our Intrepid After Hours program offers exclusive access to explore the museum and its collection and an opportunity for veterans to express their own military stories and experience with each other. And we offer Vet Video Chats, a video conferencing program which provides social connections and stimulating conversations for veterans who cannot physically be here. The Intrepid Museum is accessible to all veterans, regardless of distance, finances, or abilities. Without the dedication of our trustees, our co-chairman, and the Fisher family who saved this great ship from the scrapyard, none of this would be possible. I am proud to introduce a dedicated Intrepid leader, Mr. Mel Irmagut, a longtime vice chairman of the museum. He was chairman of one of Wall Street's premier law firms for almost 20 years. He served for many years on the Defense Business Board of the Department of Defense and on the senior advisory boards of both the United States Southern Command and European Command. He's also recently been serving as an advisor to many four-star admirals with respect to their transitions from the military to the private sector upon retirement. He is a recipient of the Exceptional Public Service Medal, among the highest civilian awards of the Secretary of Defense. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mr. Mel Irmagut.
Thanks, Susan. Memorial Day is our annual holiday for remembering those who have died while serving their country as members of our armed forces. Memorial Day actually started under another name right after the Civil War. And I know when I talked to my daughter, she hasn't ever even heard of that name. But those of us who have been around for a while know Memorial Day by the name Decoration Day. And Decoration Day signified the fact that after the Civil War, many little communities all over the country would encourage people to come by the cemeteries and decorate the graves of the fallen heroes with flowers and other decorations. The current Memorial Day started only in 1971, when then President Lyndon Johnson decided that there would be a national holiday to signify the significance of the day, rather than all these local occurrences all over the country. We're truly blessed today to have as our Memorial Day speaker on Intrepid, Admiral Chris Grady, the current commander of United States Fleet Forces Command, which is one of the largest components of the entire United States Navy, which of course is the most powerful and largest naval force in the history of the world. National security concerns preoccupy all of us every day. Terrorism, as embodied by ISIL and Al-Qaeda, aggressive foreign state powers like North Korea and Russia, relations with friendly countries like our NATO alliance members, budgetary constraints, and a host of other issues make our military as important now as it has been at any time in our history. Intrepid is, besides Grant's tomb, the only major military installation in what many of us think is the capital of the world, New York City. Memorial Day is our most solemn day, commemorating as it does those who have made the final ultimate sacrifice for our country. And it's therefore inspiring to have as our speaker on this day, right besides this great ship Intrepid, a leader like Admiral Grady. He's truly extraordinary. A native of Newport, Rhode Island, the current commander of Fleet Forces based in Norfolk, Virginia. In that job, he mans, trains, and equips over 125 ships, 1,000 aircraft, and 103,000 active duty service members and government employees. That's a big job. As commander of Fleet Forces, which he assumed responsibility for only 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago, so this is a new job, he's responsible for providing combat-ready forces to our numbered fleets and combatant commanders around the globe. He's also, importantly, especially for Intrepid, responsible for the Navy's participation in Fleet Week, and I'm sure is going to be extremely helpful to us for many years to come in that capacity.
Good luck, Mel. What do you know about?
During past assignments, Admiral Grady has commanded 6th Fleet, Carrier Strike Group Carl Vinson, and USS Cole, as well as many other combat and also extremely sensitive Washington, D.C. based administrative assignments. And I know that he's regarded as one of the most imaginative and accomplished officers in the Navy. Our Memorial Day service involves remembrance of all of our soldiers, sailors, Marines, airmen, Coast Guardsmen and women who have given their lives so we may be free. We have had a tradition on Intrepid of Memorial Day speakers from all branches of the military. Obviously, being next to Intrepid and with Arlington, which unfortunately we can't see because Carnival Horizon must have paid a lot to get and block our view of Arlington. It's extremely powerful and exciting to have one of our nation's leading naval officers as our speaker this year to lead us in our remembrance. So it's with the greatest honor and respect that I present to you the Commander of United States Fleet Forces Command, Admiral Chris Grady.
Thank you, Mel, for that kind introduction, and good morning to all of you. It's indeed a pleasure to be here and celebrate Memorial Day with you. Secretary Chow, great to see you today. Congresswoman Maloney, I'm not certain that she's made it yet, but soon. Mr. Mayor, great to share the podium with you today. And Susan, thank you for all you do with the Intrepid. Fellow flag officers, general officers, distinguished guests, it truly is great to be back here at Fleet Week, New York. And Mr. Mayor, thank you again for hosting the U.S. Navy. I have very fond memories of this weekend. This is, in fact, my 4th Fleet Week, once as a Navy lieutenant, once as in command of Cole, once as the Commodore that did the parade of ships here, and now as the Fleet Commander. And I couldn't think of a better place to spend Memorial Day. Thank you. And indeed, it's an honor to witness the city open its arms to the fleet and provide such a warm and gracious and serve as such warm and gracious hosts and provide that hospitality to our sailors, Marines, and Coast Guardsmen. And it starts here at the Intrepid. So to the Intrepid staff, celebrating 75 years since the commissioning of this great warship, you all do a fantastic job keeping the legacy of the ship and her crew alive and well. Such an important piece of history, no doubt. And of course, I'd also like to thank the first responders here today for ensuring that today's ceremony is a safe and memorable one for all of you, the firemen, the police officers, the emergency medical care personnel. Thank you for what you do. So Memorial Day. Across the country today, many people are celebrating, remembering, and above all, paying respect. Respect for those who sacrificed their lives to protect our way of life, our American values, and our ideals of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Indeed, Abraham Lincoln called this sacrifice the last full measure of devotion. As Mel referenced, in May of 1866, just after the Civil War, Memorial Day was then known as Decoration Day. And in that time, it was a day to reflect and to reconcile, but most of all, a day to remember. History tells us of a drugstore owner in 1866 in the town of Waterloo, New York, who, out of admiration, honor, and respect for the fallen, both Union and Confederate, closed the doors of his store and urged others to follow suit. So today, all across this great nation, Americans pause to remember the fallen. And while often Memorial Day is seen as the first day of summer with outdoor barbecues and parades and remembrances, not unlike what we see here today and throughout the five boroughs, it's about honors, ceremony, and formality, all in the name of recognizing the sacrifices of the fallen, all executed with the utmost respect and in full recognition of the sacrifices of those who have gone before us, those whose loyal devotion to duty created the very foundation of our success in this great country. So all across the storied battlefields of the past, groups will gather to give thanks, to honor the fallen, and to pledge and affirm our commitment to this great land. After 34 years of naval service, I have had the honor of serving our nation around the globe. And today I can tell you with the utmost confidence that the patriotism shown in this country, the respect paid to our fallen, once again as highlighted here in this great city, is the most profound that I have witnessed. Whether in San Francisco at the Golden Gate National Cemetery amongst such names as Spruance, Turner, and Nimitz, or the hallowed grounds of the Arizona Memorial in Pearl Harbor, Hawaii, the message and the sentiments are the same. Above all else, the absolute honor shown to our fallen is of the highest regard and keeping with the highest traditions of military service. I would also like to honor our veterans with us here today. I thank you for your service. We are honored to have you here today, and indeed many of you continue to serve. And whether you have served for 4 years or 34 years, your service matters and does not go unnoticed. So will the veterans in the crowd please stand or just raise your hand and be recognized by those of us so that we can appreciate everything you do. Thank you. And of course, we also shall never forget those warriors who did not come home. All across this great land, family members and friends mourn those who never returned from the battlefield. One in particular I would like to talk about today was a proud New Yorker, a U.S. Marine who served in Vietnam. He was born in Brooklyn in 1934 and was a 1952 graduate of Xavier High School right here in Manhattan. Donald Gilbert Cook was the first Marine captured in Vietnam and was awarded the Medal of Honor for his heroic actions while in captivity. For nearly 3 years, Cook led 9 other American POWs in captivity, always looking out for their health and welfare, while always complying with the spirit and intent of the U.S. Military Code of Conduct. Those who were inspired while being captive, inspired by Cook, speak of his willingness to bend, his unwillingness to bend, his unwillingness to aid the enemy, and his absolute unwillingness to betray his unwavering faith in God. He was, in fact, the quintessential hardcore resistor who saw the jungle prison camps as an extension of the battlefield upon which he continued to fight empty-handed. Donald Cook's strict adherence to the code of conduct is legendary. Article 4 of the code clearly states, "If I become a prisoner of war, I will keep faith with my fellow prisoners. I will give no information or take part in any action which might be harmful to my comrades. If I am senior, I will take command. If not, I will obey the lawful orders of those appointed over me, and I will back them up in every way." Colonel Cook lived his life by this very code. It drove him to be the Marine all hoped to be. There was the code and nothing else except his deep and abiding faith. Moved from one jungle prison camp to another over the course of 3 years, he stoically endured torture, starvation, and maltreatment. Colonel Cook finally succumbed to malaria and died on a simple jungle path in December 1967. To this day, his remains have never been recovered. And today, we honor his service as the epitome of the Navy and Marine Corps core values of honor, courage, and commitment. We honor his legacy, and we shall never forget his fighting spirit and his absolute unwillingness to quit. We must remember Donald Cook's own words to his 4 children: "Do what is right and just, no matter the personal cost." This was the personal creed that he lived by. As an example of the profound impact that Cook had on our country and the Department of Navy, a United States naval warship, the USS Donald Cook, an Arleigh Burke-class guided missile destroyer that served under my command in 6th Fleet, with 300 proud sailors aboard, quietly patrols the seas of the Eastern Mediterranean this very day, carrying his namesake and time-honored motto of faith without fear. The Windsor Terrace neighborhood in Brooklyn also proudly remembers this warrior's legacy. Colonel Donald Cook Square is within a busy intersection in Brooklyn where McDonald and Canton Avenues join the Fort Hamilton Parkway. Like Colonel Cook, there are countless others who have never returned. These fearless warriors represent the very best of America and the less than 1% of Americans who choose to serve in uniform today. Today, we bear true faith and allegiance to the fallen across the hallowed grounds and monuments and battlefields on or above the sea. When we speak of hallowed grounds, there is no more sacred than right here in New York City. As over 2,000 sailors and Marines have gathered this weekend to once again pay tribute to our fallen, to have our faith restored by the sincere patriotism and respect shown by New Yorkers, we are forever grateful. This bond between your military and the people that it serves ensures that our fleet, when called upon to act, is resolute, ready, and lethal on arrival. It's what the nation demands. And to our military families, many of whom are here today, your service to our great nation is never taken for granted. I often say that family readiness equals operational readiness. Thank you all for being here today. Thank you for your steadfast devotion to our country and for your patriotism. Your continued support truly ensures that our cutlass remains sharp. And as the 35th President of the United States, President John F. Kennedy said, "Let every nation know, whether it wishes us well, ill or well, that we shall pay any price, bear any burden, meet any hardship, support any friend, oppose any foe, to assure the survival and success of liberty." Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir, for your very important words this morning. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to introduce co-chairman of the Intrepid Museum, Mr. Bruce Mosler. Bruce is chairman, of Global Brokerage at Cushman & Wakefield, the world's largest independent real estate services firm, and as co-chairman of the Intrepid Board of Trustees, a passionate champion of the museum. He cares deeply about the well-being of our military personnel and their families, and as such is a member of the boards of the Iraq and Afghanistan Veterans of America, the Navy SEALs Foundation, and Syracuse University Institute for Veterans and Military Families. He serves as chairman of the board of Business Executives for National Security and countless other civic and charitable organizations. Please welcome Mr. Bruce Mosler.
Good morning. Better. Thank you, Susan, for that very kind introduction and for all that you and the entire Intrepid team do to make this a world-class institution. Admiral Grady, thank you for being with us this morning. More importantly, thank you for your service to our country. Secretary Chow, thank you for joining us, as well as Congresswoman Maloney. We appreciate it. Mel, as always, it's good to see you. I also want to thank our Board of Trustees, especially my co-chairman, Ken Fisher, and the entire Fisher family for all that they do for our men and women in uniform. Ladies and gentlemen, we gather here on a solemn occasion, a day our nation sets aside, as we've heard already, to remember those who, in the immortal words of President Lincoln, gave the last full measure of devotion in defense of our nation. It is fitting that we are here at Intrepid to honor their memory. Intrepid is hallowed ground. Famous for her rich history of service to our country, she carried men and munitions in World War II, Vietnam, and the Cold War. She knew battle, danger, attacks, loss of life, acts of heroism, and ultimately victory. More than 270 of her sailors gave their lives on this ship and in her aircraft. Intrepid, therefore, reminds us that freedom is not and can never be for free. It comes with a heavy cost and requires great courage and extraordinary sacrifice. This year, as Susan has said, is particularly important to this institution as we celebrate the 75th anniversary of the commissioning of this great ship in 1943. And from that day to this day, Intrepid honors our heroes' sacrifice by reminding our youth of the heavy price that the 1% who wear the uniform must pay to maintain our freedom. 24 hours, 7 days a week, more than 260,000 of these men and women are forward deployed around the world in harm's way, and they are indeed prepared to lay down their lives in defense of our freedoms. They are the fine line protecting the future that we want for our children from a present that could snatch away what we often take for granted. We remember on this day that their service has a very high cost, for which as a nation we must be eternally grateful. So in their honor, I urge you today to please take nothing for granted and pause with me to mark a special moment on behalf of those who keep our country safe. Thank you. Because we know our national security carries a cost, we must be vigilant and clear-minded in assessing our standing around the world. Ladies and gentlemen, we as a country are at a serious inflection point in world affairs. The choices our nation makes at this time will determine the direction we take for many, many generations to come. The world requires, in fact, the world is asking for the leadership of the United States. Leadership is negotiating a fair deal with Iran while not forgetting their dominant role in funding terrorism in the Middle East. Leadership is sending Russia and China a message of strength in the face of territorial aggression in the Ukraine or saber-rattling in the South China Sea. And finally, leadership requires a cautious and thoughtful approach to an unpredictable nation like North Korea. The world looks to us because we are founded on the proposition of freedom. On this day here in the city that's home to the Statue of Liberty, where the terrorists struck on 9/11, we must commit to holding firm to our nation's ideals, defending our friends, and promoting democratic values. Ladies and gentlemen, that is the work of our Intrepid Museum. It is our staff and trustees' responsibility to carry out the mission of recognizing and honoring those prepared to pay the highest price for our freedoms. We therefore educate, inspire, and pass on to the next generation both the hope and the responsibility that has motivated those who served on this ship. God bless you all. God bless those that have made the ultimate sacrifice, and God bless America. And now, ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests and members of the military, it is my great privilege to introduce a great New York leader and a great friend, Mayor Bill Deblasio. Not yet, sir, not yet, sir. Not yet. An anxious mayor. He is no stranger to the cost of service, as his father served with distinction in the Army in the Pacific Theater of World War II. The mayor is committed to continuing his life's work of building a stronger city known for opportunities to all. He's committed to creating a city where every child has the opportunity to have a great education. And he is committed to securing a city that cares for our veterans. One great step in that effort was the appointment of retired Army Brigadier General Lori Sutton as Commissioner of Veterans Affairs. With the mayor at the helm, I am optimistic that New York can be a place where people from all walks of life have equal opportunities to get a great education, to raise a strong family, to own a business and invest in their neighborhoods. Ladies and gentlemen, it is now my privilege and honor to introduce the 109th mayor of our great city, Mayor Bill Deblasio.
He fooled me there. All right. Good morning, everyone. There, that's much better. If any of the personnel from Arlington and the other ships did not answer with a lot of vigor because they're still a little blurry-eyed from last night, that's okay. But everyone else, I appreciate that strong answer on this important day. We are gathered here in common cause. Everyone here is here because you feel something for your nation and you feel something for the people who serve our nation. I want to thank all the active duty personnel in the United States military. I want to thank all the veterans. I want to thank the first responders. I want to thank the family members of all those people and anyone who's just here because you support those who serve us and you honor them. So that's everyone here, so I'm going to ask you to do something. Applaud your neighbor, please. Admiral, thank you for your tremendous service to this country and for your powerful remarks. And this is a man who truly loves New York City. I appreciate that. All New Yorkers appreciate that. 4 Fleet Weeks, that's pretty good. Thank you, Admiral. I want to thank our very special guest, Secretary Chow. An honor to have you with us today in New York City. Congressmember Maloney, thank you so much. Also want to thank, of course, everyone who serves in our New York City Department of Veterans Services, and they are an energetic group who want to serve veterans every day, especially the very energetic Commissioner Lori Sutton. Thank you, Commissioner. And to all my colleagues here who are part of making the Intrepid great, and the Intrepid means so much to New York City, I thank you all. Susan and all of your colleagues, thank you for making this such an important part of our city. The Intrepid got the right name. When the ship was commissioned, they could not have known all that the Intrepid would go through. Torpedo attack, 4 kamikaze attacks. So many times when this ship could have been counted out, but Intrepid kept coming back. And everyone who served on this ship, I thank you and I honor you. And I feel a special connection to all of you and to this ship because of my dad's service that you heard about a moment ago from Bruce. While Intrepid was in the seas around Okinawa and Leyte Gulf, my dad was on the ground with the U.S. Army. And those were such intense battles, particularly Okinawa. Legendary for all the men who served and gave so much. My dad spoke about his experiences, and as many of you know, when you talk to someone who served in battle, it's not always an easy conversation for them. I looked up to him and I honored him for what he had done, but I have to be honest, he didn't always want to talk about it. But sometimes he would let his memories come forth. And he would often speak about his friends, his buddies, his comrades in arms who did not come back. And the pain, even decades later, was so real. And the sense of a bond that they had, like no other bond that people feel. It was palpable to me, even as a young man, trying to understand that deep sense of loss, but also something so good in the powerful memory. Because when my father spoke about his comrades in arms, it was as if they were very much alive still in his heart. Unfortunately, he also left something on the battlefield. He lost half of one leg on Okinawa. And as with all who suffer physical harm, he was never quite the same after, although he fought his way back. And it went far beyond the physical scars. He faced many other challenges as the weight of that wartime experience bore on him for decades after. And it came back to affect our whole family, as it does so many families. So when I think about Memorial Day, the first obligation we have is to remember those who are lost, to really honor them, to really think about them as people who did something so brave. But then I think our next obligation is to support all those who came back. And I think those who are lost, if they could send a wish forward to us, they would first tell us to take care of their own families for them. And of course, they would have every right to ask us to remember them. But then they would want us to take care of those they served with who were blessed enough to come home. And they would want us to take care of everyone who wore that uniform and then came back to contribute in so many other ways in civilian life. So Memorial Day is about supporting our veterans as well. Memorial Day is about supporting the families of those we lost and those who came back. Memorial Day is about appreciating what military service means and making sure that we bring alive that appreciation. Today is important because we have to use words and symbols in unity to help us remember. But our actions thereafter, I would argue, are even more important. In this city, which has, and Admiral, I'm very proud of this fact, almost 500,000 service members, former service members, and their family members. This is a great, great city of veterans. We are committed every day to making their lives better. Whether it was getting rid of the scourge of chronic homelessness among our veterans, an idea that is so painful to even consider that that existed in this city or any other city, but that scourge has been overcome. On to making sure there are employment opportunities for veterans. And I say this on Veterans Day, but I say it on Memorial Day too. If you want to do something great for your nation, hire a veteran. And finally, to making sure that our veterans get the health care they deserve, and to say openly and respectfully to all, that health care sometimes is physical health care, sometimes it's mental health care, some need both. There is no dishonor in any of that. It's our job to make sure all is available and to respect people by actually giving them that helping hand. That's what we must commit ourselves to. So So I conclude by saying this city is so proud of all of you. And when Fleet Week comes each year, we open our arms and welcome. It's a joy to be able to say thank you and to honor those who have done so much good for all of us. Thank you, and God bless you all.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, very much as well for your incredibly important, meaningful words. Ladies and gentlemen, we will now continue with a solemn tradition of this museum. We will lay 4 memorial wreaths on the Hudson River in memory of the brave men and women, our heroes, who have made the ultimate sacrifice for their country. The first wreath honors United States military personnel lost in current conflicts. The second honors all United States military personnel in all conflicts throughout our history. The third honors Intrepid crew members who fell in action. And the fourth honors those lost from allied nations. I ask Admiral Christopher Grady, Mr. Bruce Mosler, and Mayor Bill Deblasio to lay a wreath in memory of the United States military personnel lost in current conflicts. I ask Colonel Dick Cole, World War II veteran and Doolittle Raider, and Secretary Elaine Chao to lay a wreath for United States military personnel lost throughout our nation's history. I ask Mr. Joe Litschauer, Mr. Aaron Resnick, and Congresswoman Carolyn Maloney to lay a wreath in memory of all Intrepid crew members. I ask Mr. Mel Irmagood and Commissioner Lori Sutton to lay a wreath for military personnel of allied nations. Ladies and gentlemen, in front of you, behind me, is an American flag, the symbol of our nation and our freedom. The flag stretches 100 feet. I ask the flag detail of our United States Armed Forces to take their positions and open this flag. I ask that you do all please remain in your seats in this area until the flag is open. Once the flag is open, we will invite our Intrepid former crew members and all veterans and military personnel who are here with us today to come forward and take hold of this flag, and we will raise the flag together in honor of our fallen comrades throughout the world. Following the flag unfurling, a detail from Naval Weapons Station Earl will fire 3 volleys, a traditional military salute. The Navy Band Northeast will perform taps, and F-18F and F-18E Hornets from the United States Navy Squadrons VFA 32 and VFA 131 will fly over Intrepid in missing man formation in salute of our fallen. active duty military personnel, please join us around the flag. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for coming to Intrepid to remember those who have fallen and for joining us on this very special day. God bless you and God bless America.